Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my very first bonsai, a Ficus microcarpa that I grew from a seed, and it is now about 33 or 34 years old. So today I'm going to be pruning it up and repotting it. I've been letting it grow for the whole first part of the summer, and over the winter I got a lot of dieback on it. It was in the plant room and I could see this view of it and everything looked good. And then when I came to pull it out in spring, I noticed there was at least 3 branches that died back here. And I think it's because I was watering from this direction and maybe it dried out on this side of the tree. So it was very disappointing, but it was a lesson learned that my plant room was too crowded. I couldn't access the trees properly, and as a result I got branches dying back. I don't know if it was from insects or just drying out or what it was, but it happened. And in bonsai you can't go back in time. You can only work with what you have. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be removing all the dead branches, looking at the structure, and then pruning it up to try and kind of restore the tree. Here's a look at the tree. So there's a few things going on with the tree. I tried pruning off my aerial roots short, and it's working. The aerial roots were getting too thick and they weren't detailed enough to make the tree look miniature. So you can see I cut the aerial roots off, leaving a stub of the aerial roots. Then I surrounded the base of the tree with soil, and the new roots grew from these aerial root stumps down into the soil. And it doesn't look very good now, but once these roots start to thicken up and blend in with the original roots, I think it'll look quite good. And they're starting to do that now. Not all of these roots will survive, but there are some that go down and reach into the soil. So I think you'll see in a few years it'll all kind of make sense. On my Frankenficus, I've done the same kind of technique down here. I cut off a root and regrew new roots from that cut point, and you can see they blend in really nicely now, and it improved the look of the tree. On my Ficus microcarpa here, I got 3 branches that died off in the upper structure. At least 3 anyway. This lower one, which is in kind of a critical position. I do have another branch in behind that I may be able to use. I've got a couple up top that died off. It was quite disappointing when I pulled the tree out, but you know, again, a lesson learned. Don't have your plant room so crowded you can't access your trees properly, to look at them, water them properly. So I'm going to remove all the deadwood first and then tackle the pruning and then kind of look at the structure of the tree and decide what to do. I could strip the trunk down to just a bare trunk and regrow all the branches. If I cut all these branches off, I'd get, dozens of shoots coming out all over the trunk, but I don't want to do that. Part of the age of a ficus is this transition from the trunk into the branches. It's kind of gives it a mature feeling, so I don't really want to strip it down to a bare trunk for sure. So I'll begin the work now by removing all the dead branches. I left all the dead branches on the tree, hoping maybe part of it is alive and it would send out new shoots, but it didn't. So I'm going to start taking the branches back, and I'll start at the tips, and I'm looking to see if the branch is alive or not. I don't think it is, but I'm going to nibble it back. I don't see any sap or any green. So far it's all dead. Yeah. Still dead. Let's try it here. Still dead. Dead. Try it back to here now. Still dead. You can see there's no sap flow. It's brown and dry. So I've got to take it right back to the trunk line. So I'll start here. Yeah, it's definitely died, the whole branch. So I want to make a cut that is a little, concave. So when it heals, it'll be fairly flush. So I don't get a lump. So here I go. Here's my first kind of deep cut. Like that. So now I can see I'm into the living part of the trunk. I can see a bit of sap flow. I can still see a dead section out the front here. I can nibble back a bit more. Fairly large wound, but luckily it's a ficus and they heal fairly quickly. Okay, so that's taken back. It's fairly flush. There's a little dead branch out the front. Take that back too. And then there's this branch up here. It's also very dead. I'll try halfway. Still dead. So I've got to take it right back to the trunk. Okay. So I'm getting into living tissue there. There's also a branch reaching out the front here that died off. So I'm just nibbling that back, looking for any signs of life. No, it's totally gone. So I'll take that right off too. Like that. So I'm into some living tissue now. Kind of ugly with these scars here, but they will heal someday. So I think I'll seal these cuts up with rubber cement. It'll keep that wood waterproof and it won't rot away. Even though you get the natural latex kind of sealing the wound, I'm going to make double sure with the rubber cement. And you don't have to seal a ficus up. They kind of heal fairly quickly on large wounds, but I'm going to spoil the tree today. Okay. So this rubber cement dries quickly and it's flexible, so when the wound starts closing in, it doesn't, impede the healing of the tree. It stays quite flexible. So that is the major branches that I've noticed so far that have died back, that are off the tree. There are lots of little branches that also died back that I'm going to prune away now. Okay. So there's a little branch here that's died off. Take that off. That one's good. This one's dead. This one's dead. Everything else I think is living. Yeah. There's one here that's dead. Take that off. This one. This one here. There's one in here. A few little ones in here. A little one here. Here. So I'll go over the rest of the tree, just looking to see if there's any more, little dead branches, and I'll prune them off. I don't think there's any more major ones. Just cleaning up some pruning stubs from last time I pruned it. Oh, there's one in here. It broke off. So I'm starting this work early in the morning. We're in the middle of another heat wave. It's going to go up to 32 degrees Celsius today, which is hot for us. It's quite natural to lose some of your fine branching over winter because outside you get all kinds of little shoots starting to grow off the existing branches and trunk. And then in winter, with the reduced light levels, those little branches on the interior don't get much light and they tend to die off. If the tree was outdoors all the time, they wouldn't die off, but growing ficus in a cold climate is very different from growing them in the tropics. You have to be so careful to make sure each branch gets light, otherwise they just die off. Some more dead branches out the back here. There's a stub here. Yeah, you're always, the ficus grow fantastic in the summer, and then winter comes and it doesn't seem to matter how good your lighting is, you always get some of the interior branches dying back just because they're not getting the light they used to in summer. So there's a fairly big stub here that's died back. Take that off. I'm getting there. I think I've got most of the dead branches removed now. Yeah, I think that is it. So let's go back to the front. Here is where I am at. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now it's time to look at the tree and decide what I'm going to do with the kind of restyling or resetting the tree. Here's a look at the tree now. So I'm going to study it. I'm just going to look at all the possibilities. I'll take my time looking at the tree and deciding on a plan of action to kind of get it back on track. I've been letting the tree grow for the first part of summer, and it's good and strong and healthy. So I think to properly look at the structure of the tree, I need to defoliate it and then evaluate all the branches and what I've got. A Ficus microcarpa can be cut back quite hard and it sends out new shoots really easily. A Ficus benjamina is a little more, you have to be a little more cautious. If you cut a branch back hard, it could just die off and you'll get new shoots growing somewhere. But a Ficus microcarpa is quite reliable. If I cut this branch off here, I'll get tons of new shoots growing out around the cut point. So yeah, I think that's the next step, is defoliation, so I can then study the tree properly and look at it and kind of get it going once again. All right, here I go, defoliating the tree. So I just come in and I cut the leaves off near the base, leaving just a little bit of the leaf petiole on the tree. So I mentioned we're in the middle of a bit of a heat wave for the next 3 days. So it is a good time to work on ficus, especially repotting. You can do hard root pruning when it's warm and humid and they don't skip a beat. The new roots just grow in really quickly. And I can tell the tree is really healthy because there's aerial roots growing out from the base here. So it's putting out roots like crazy in this weather. When you're defoliating the tree, always be on the lookout for scale insects and any problems you see with the tree. So I did find a few scale blisters on some of the branches. So I'll have to spray it with soap and water and make sure it's insect free for the rest of the summer. I'll be potting this in a very large pot, one of those, old Chinese pots. I think it'll be a little oversized for the tree, but I think the tree will grow really strongly in that pot. It's quite deep. And ficus, if your ficus is getting weak, you can put it in a deep pot and they will really take off in vigor. They will grow in a shallow pot, but not as strongly as in a deep pot. The roots like to grow down. Vertical roots thicken up like crazy, whereas the horizontal roots don't thicken up as much. It takes a long, long time. It's quite common in Taiwan that the trees are displayed in shows in shallow pots, and then after the show they immediately put it back in a deep pot to keep the vigor up on the tree. Oh, there's another little dead branch here. I haven't noticed any other scale insects, just that one branch had a couple of blisters on it. And a lot of these whippy branches that I'm defoliating, they'll get cut back quite hard. So, you know. If you want, you know, a whippy branch, you could cut it back first and save defoliating the tip, which is going to get pruned off anyway, but I'm going to leave everything on, all the branches long, and then look at the structure and then decide what to prune. Because you may want to leave a sacrifice branch. If you want to thicken up a branch, you can leave one branch long and let it grow out to thicken the branch up. It is nice working away early in the morning. The sun has just come up and it is going to be a hot day. Right now, the greenhouse is at about 18 degrees Celsius, which is really, really nice. But I imagine by the end of the day, it'll heat up to 45, maybe even 50 degrees Celsius. Even with the fans running and the door open and the roof vents on. Yeah, these greenhouses can get pretty warm in the summer. And a ficus, generally, they like to stay between a temperature of 20 degrees Celsius and maybe 35, maybe even 40 degrees Celsius. Once you start getting above that, they're not really happy in the extreme heat. And my goal for this tree is to grow it in the natural ficus style. So lots of kind of low spreading branches, a wide umbrella shaped canopy. That's the goal, is to, you know, create a mature ficus in miniature. And it takes a long time in a cold climate. I get 3, maybe 4 months of a good growing season here out of the 12 months of the year. So in a warmer climate, you know, you probably get triple, maybe quadruple the growth in one season that I get here in Canada. When I cut off these aerial roots on the tree, I wondered if I was making a mistake because they look quite good. You know, they flowed down nicely, they were looking good, but they were getting thick and roots won't get any thinner. So I cut them off and, you know, I'm regrowing finer roots. And at the moment it looks, you know, terrible. But I think you'll see over the next few years that they'll get better and better and better. And eventually, I hope it becomes the right decision. It's all an effort to kind of miniaturize the tree to make it look, you know, bigger than it is. And
I studied all the trunks on ficus, and all the roots coming off the trunk are very fine, except for the main trunk, and generally. So that's the reason I took that step and removed those roots. It was a pretty drastic move, and I wasn't sure how well it was going to work, but now I can start to see some of the results, and it's starting to work. It's going to look good, I think, and better. I think if I'd left them on, it would have just got this kind of thick trunk with all these kind of thick roots around it, and it wouldn't have looked as miniature as I think it will in the future. And that's something, you take a perfectly good looking tree, and the goal is always to try and make it look better. And sometimes you have to sacrifice years. You do an operation on it, either a hard cut back or pruning roots and that, and it sets the tree back, and for quite a long time. But the goal is to continuously improve the tree for the future and not really worry about the time frame too much, because I try and always do what's best for the tree, not what's best for me. So I have given away quite a few trees that I overwinter in the plant room. So this winter, I will definitely have more space in the plant room. And my goal is to make it a nice place to be in the winter, so it's not so crowded. Last winter I had trees on the floor. I could barely walk in the room. I couldn't see the trees properly. It was way too crowded. And as a result, I am doing this work today to try and correct all the dieback I got. Just purely my fault. Too many trees. So it was a lesson the trees taught me. Reinforce that lesson. And indoor trees over the winter, they're very prone to insect attacks. And when you have fewer trees, you can take better care of them. If you have too many trees, it's overwhelming when you get an insect attack. It seems like, instead of treating 20 trees, you're treating 100, and it can get really frustrating and out of hand. It just seems like you spend your whole winter trying to keep the trees healthy. Instead of enjoying the trees, you're kind of always fighting insects and trying to keep them watered, and it becomes a chore rather than a pleasure. So that's what I'm trying to avoid this winter. So there may be a few more trees I will have to give away. I'm going to kind of concentrate on the trees that are my older trees, and I will keep different species. If I just have one species of a tree, I will keep it. But if I have duplicate species, I will definitely give some of them away, just to ease my burden. So yesterday I was at Chris Hendry's. He hosted the meeting of the Middlesex Bonsai Society at his place, and he was a fantastic host. And the guest artist was Chris Snedden, and we did a pottery workshop very similar to the one at the Kitchener-Waterloo Bonsai Society. The goal was to do the raku firing on the pots. So I made a couple of pots, nothing fancy, but it was a fun day, meeting everyone from the Middlesex Bonsai Society, and there were a lot of people that traveled quite far to come to the workshop, which was nice to see. But it was a hot, hot day. The workshop was in the barn, and it was out of the sun, but boy, it was hot. And when I say hot, it's hot for us Canadians. 32 or 33 degrees Celsius, very little wind, and very high humidity. The humidity was probably 70%. So yeah, it was a warm day, but it was a very enjoyable day. I didn't buy anything, but I do have my eye on a pot there. So, yeah. I was at Chris Hendry's on the Sunday, and then on Saturday, Dave's Bonsai had his Bonsai Expo, and it was 9 hours of pretty intense bonsai talk, discussions, interviews. It was a great day, so thanks very much, Dave. It was a fascinating expo. I really enjoyed it. I sat and watched the whole thing. I was glued to my seat. There were some great interviews. He interviewed Sarah Rayner, and it was a fantastic interview. She's a potter in the United States, in Minnesota. Yeah, it was really, really a good day. And Dave did a fantastic job hosting it, putting up all the videos. It was nice to meet all the different people. There were a lot of YouTubers, and they had videos and discussions, and yeah, just a great day of bonsai. So I'm hoping Dave does it again next year. It's a lot of work, and you know, Dave is a very hard-working person, and it showed. His hard work came through yesterday on Saturday. It was just a fantastic expo. So thanks very much, Dave, for inviting me to the expo, having me on as a speaker. It was a great day. I really enjoyed it, and I think everyone who was watching did too. There was always, you know, at least 100 people online at a time. So there was good discussions in the chat. There was great videos, great interviews. Yeah, it was a good day. So Dave will be releasing the Bonsai Expo in sections on his channel. So if you subscribe to Dave's Bonsai, you will eventually see the entire expo if you missed it. I did miss, Connor had a backyard tour the same day, so I wasn't able to get to Connor's, but I'll have to get to Connor's another day in the summer and do a tour of his trees. It's been a couple of years since I've given you an update on Connor's trees, so it'll be very interesting to see how his trees are coming along, what new ones he has. Yeah, I get the full bench tour. And his bench tour, it's usually, you know, 4 videos, because he has a lot of trees, and Connor is very good at discussing his trees and telling you the history of them, the origins, the future plans for them. Yeah, it's always fascinating to go to Connor's. And I also learned yesterday that Peter Chan is returning here to some, I think it's bonsai at the Royal Botanical Gardens in Burlington, is going to host him. And yeah, so it'll be really nice seeing Peter Chan again. And I'm not sure when that's coming up, but it is coming up. I'll let you know, because it's always nice to see Peter Chan and hear him talk about bonsai. He is, yeah, he's one of the legends in bonsai, that's for sure. And he's a very, very nice person. very generous. So I'm making good progress defoliating the tree. I would say I'm about half done. I have got the tree defoliated, so here is my pile of leaves. There's a lot of leaves came off. And here is a look at the tree. So you can see, all that new growth is kind of curving upwards, kind of going vertical. I can see this side of the tree is quite a bit denser with branches than this side. Yeah, there's a lot of work to go pruning up the structure. So my next step, I'm going to spray the tree. I didn't see many scale insects on it. There was just one branch that had about 3 blisters and one near the back that had a couple of blisters on it. But other than that, it was scale free. But I'm going to spray it just as a precaution. Make sure I don't have any insects for the rest of the summer. To spray the tree, I'm using soap and water. So 40 parts water to 1 part liquid dish soap, the kind you use for hand washing dishes. So here I go. I'm going to spray the tree. Because this comes out in kind of a mist, you don't want to breathe it in. It's hard on the lungs. So I'm going to hold my breath, spray the tree, walk outside, breathe, maybe come back in, spray it some more once the air is cleared in here. And that's what I'll do. So here I go. So big breath. I've left the tree sit for about 5 minutes with the soap on it. So now I'll rinse it off. And I'll rinse the soap and water out of the soil. Well, that should be good. And I'll throw all the leaves out on the compost heap. The tree is now cleaned up, defoliated. So I am ready to study the structure. So I want this tree to look like a natural ficus. And the closest one I have to the natural style of a ficus is my Ficus Fancy. I'll show you that one. Here's a look at Ficus Fancy. So you can see the branch structure, the roots, the canopy. So that's kind of, a typical mature ficus you'd see in nature. It's very similar to this style. And that's what I want my other tree to look like also. I'm going to begin by just rotating the tree around. This has always been the front of the tree. And I'm just looking to see if there's any better fronts. There's the back. This branch used to be coming out in a radial direction, and the radial part of it died off, and then one of the side branches took off and thickened up, and so it's a bit of an unusual branch, but it's very typical of a ficus to have branches like that. It's not something that offends me too much. Yeah, I think, if I change the front of the tree, it would be very subtle. So here's the current front, and I may rotate it just slightly off center, maybe. it would be to about, just rotating it slightly. It brings this root system a little closer to the trunk if I rotate it, matching kind of this side. If I have it at the current front, there's a bit of a gap here, which, there's nothing wrong with that. But so I think this is still, probably the best front for the tree. I'm a little, because these branches died back, my apex is kind of going away a bit and then it comes forward, but I think that would be all right as this fills out. I've got a double apex here. This branch is behind this one, so I think I would make this more of a branch rather than going up into the canopy quite so much. This side is definitely sparser compared to this side. So I'll be thinning out this side a bit. And I've got, this branch comes up and there's a good horizontal branch here. And then I've got a vertical part under this aerial root that comes up. And I'm not sure I need all of that. It's getting maybe a little congested in here, which is all right if this side matched, but it doesn't. So it used to have a branch here which kind of filled this space in, which looked good. However, I don't have that branch anymore. I just have a big scar. So yeah, it's there's definitely some pruning work coming. I think on a branch like this, I've got a good branch coming off here. I could probably prune this upright part off, kind of shortening that branch so it's not quite so vertical. That would be a good idea. And a lot of these branches that are starting to curve upwards, I can prune to more of a horizontal branch and get them growing a little more horizontally at the bottom. And as I go up the tree, the branches will get more and more vertical. Yeah, on this back branch, this part of it, you can see it's parallel with the trunk. And from the front view, it doesn't look so good. If I get rid of that, then I've got kind of nothing growing out the back here, which is a bit of a disadvantage. But yeah, it kind of bothers me growing parallel with the trunk, that back branch. So it may be a question of, or a choice of keeping this one and pruning that back one away, or pruning it off short, hoping something comes out a little more horizontally here, rather than going up parallel to the trunk. This aerial root will get taken back eventually. You can see there's some strong roots thickening up here, so I can take a section out of this to thin it out for the future. And same with these other ones. I can take pieces off of that aerial root and some of the roots with it to thin them out a bit. Well, I think it's time to start pruning. I've kind of had a good look at the tree. I pointed out some of the things I need to correct. So I think I'll start off on this branch. These two branches, when the tree was young, they were fairly staggered, but as it matures, they're almost like opposite branches. But you see that a lot on ficus, that there's many branches coming out from one point on the tree. And I think there's enough staggering here that they don't look too opposite. So I don't think that's a problem. I think it's fine. Especially because this one is more upright and this one's more horizontal. I don't think they're different enough that it doesn't look too symmetrical.